Hey, thank you guys for joining us again for another episode of On the Way podcast. We're so glad you guys are here with us today. My name is Brandt, I'm the creative director at Church on the Way, joined by my co-host, Whitney Martinez, who's our communications director. And we have with us today a dear friend.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Alexis.
Hi.
Say hi to the people, introduce
hey y'all,
yourself.
I'm Alexis. Nice to meet you.
Way to go.
Killing it. But no, we're super excited to have you here. This is our second, kind of third, because we did one with Pastor Tim.
Yeah.
This is our third podcast as we're going through the I Am series.
Yes.
And bringing you guys these, I guess, kind of like continuations a little bit. We get to dive in differently to some of the content from the message and see how it relates to
Our guests.
our guests and people just in the congregation. So we'll just jump right into it. Alexis, give us a little bit about who you are and kind of what you do or what you're involved in here at the church.
Okay, the main thing I'm involved in is worship.
Yeah.
But I feel like I do a myriad of other things. So I've done kids before.
Cool.
I've done youth before. But right now, I do worship.
Very cool.
I'm a part of the worship
Have you just
team.
been here your whole life?
Basically. Since I was 8.
Okay,
yeah.
so
yeah.
Yeah.
A long
PK
time.
crew, you know? Yeah.
Oh, God bless you guys.
No, it's cool because as Whitney and I were talking to prep for this, we were kind of going through the topics and who we wanted to bring in and who kind of fits with what week, more or less, as it pertains to like the topic for that I Am series or that I Am sermon. And looking at the one for this week, it was just really cool because I was like, oh, Alexis is going to be a really good fit for that. But then we were also realizing like the podcast has inadvertently just been pastors' kids.
Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of just like this. It was
I think I'm the only non-pastor's kid that we've had so far.
Yeah.
Because
Like,
you are and Tim is.
me and
Aaron's the same as
Tim,
you.
Aaron Covedo,
Oh my gosh.
you.
No, you.
That's hilarious.
And so it's just like, there you go, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there is something so beautiful about that lineage in church, and that especially with this weekend where Pastor Tim was talking about I am the way, the truth, the life, right? We as pastors' kids, but as just people who grew up in a household where Christianity was kind of just already happening.
Yeah.
We all had to go through that journey of at some point making it ours.
Yeah.
It's not my grandparents' faith. It's not my parents' faith. This has to be my faith. What's been a little bit of your journey in maybe that realization? Like as you've been going through your process with the Lord, how has that become your faith and not just the faith of generations before you?
I think, so I grew up, obviously my parents were pastors, grandparents were pastors, great-grandparents were pastors. So I was birthed into it, essentially. And so I've never known anything different. As a kid, I think it was never forced upon me.
Right.
It was never something, and I'm very thankful for that because I feel like it very easily could have been. But my parents and my grandparents, because they both essentially raised me, they were very open about it, and they were like, "This is a decision of your own, and we're gonna guide you in it the best we know how. But like at the end of the day, this is your decision to make for yourself."
Yeah.
Which I'm really thankful for.
Yeah.
So I don't think that decision actually happened till I was probably 16.
Oh, okay.
I think, and that's when I started really getting into worship more. And so that's when I started knowing the Lord more to a certain extent. I think I didn't know a lot then. But it was always something that it was just in my everyday life. Like it was modeled to me in the sense of like, I would watch my parents and my grandparents pray all the time. They'd speak in tongues around the house.
Yeah.
They would talk to me about Jesus. It'd be in little books. I'd have my little childhood Bible.
Yeah.
So it was just little things like that where it was like, it was just my life. Like I didn't know anything different. But then it got to a point where I was like, okay, it wasn't necessarily me questioning my faith. It was more so just me being like, okay, I see what they believe. I've seen the things that have happened in their life.
Yeah.
But what about my life makes me believe in the Lord? Like, truly, what have I been through?
Yeah.
And at 16, I hadn't been through much. So I was like, okay, I feel like there has to be something for me that makes it personal to me. And those things didn't start happening until I was like 19. So that was like an interesting time for me where it was
Sure.
like I was growing in my worship leading, very shy. Like I was like, this is not for me. I like music. I like music and I love Jesus, but like I didn't know what
together.
I like music and love Jesus.
So it didn't start happening until, I mean, the last 5 years of my life have been the most transformational so far.
Wow.
And so I think that is when I've really started falling in love with and truly knowing like his character.
Yeah.
And how it affects my life. But yeah, it's just, they modeled it to me, but it was never something that was like forced upon me. It was very much so, this is your own decision and you'll get there. And they had faith in me, and that their faith in me and faith in the Lord to get me there also brought me to that place where I was like, okay, I see that you have faith that the Lord's going to do things in my life.
Yeah.
But why? Like, why? I had so many questions.
Yeah.
You see them walk out their trust and faith in the Lord.
Yeah. And I still do to this day.
Yeah.
Like, there are things that I still struggle with that I see them having faith in, and they can teach me things. And I ask.
That's amazing.
I'm probably annoying, but I literally ask like all of the questions just because
Sure they don't mind.
They probably don't. But to me, I'm like, ooh, I'm probably asking too many questions.
Yeah.
But it's just, I always want to know more.
Yeah.
And so they're all my parents and my grandparents and great grandparents. When I see them, like, they always have answers to all the questions.
Are your great grandparents still alive? Your great grandparents?
I have 2.
Oh,
that are
wow.
still
That's super
alive.
cool.
Wow.
When I was born, they were all alive.
That's
On both
amazing.
sides, my mom and my dad.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually really cool.
Really
Yeah.
healthy.
Yeah.
I think one of the things you said in there that's really interesting is, and it gets a little bit of a bad rap today, is you were essentially talking about deconstructing your faith a little bit to make it your own.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think a lot of people will talk about deconstructionism and think about like, oh, this person's just trying to take apart the Bible and find fallacy in the Bible.
Yeah.
But deconstructing something so that you understand how it's put together for yourself is so important and
Yeah.
actually really beautiful.
Yeah.
What was that process? Maybe not even that process, but you're talking about kind of that place where you were around 16 making it yours. What were the things that you felt like, again, the way, the truth, the life, what are the places in your deconstructing or your questioning or whatever we want to call it, where you saw the Lord coming in and showing you the truth and showing you the way, so that when you put those things back together, it was personal to you?
Yeah. I think, well, because when I was 16, like I said, I was very insecure and I really had no idea who I was. I was like, yeah, I'm Alexis, but who is that? I didn't know. And it was not something that I was confident enough to explore. And so I think through worship leading, I started gaining my confidence. And I wouldn't, like, honestly, my confidence skyrocketed within the last, 2 years. I truly feel like I'm the most myself now.
Wow.
And it's just taken me a long time, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I love that you said long. Real quick, how old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay, there we go.
Just so everyone's Yeah, so when I was 16, I think I was getting more involved in worship leading, and I was being pushed out of my comfort zone in a good way. It's not like I was being forced. It was just my mentors. They were just pushing me to lead more and do things. And again, looking back at videos, I'm like, wow, she was so shy. But I think it was through my identity in Jesus. I was searching for my identity in everything but the Lord. And that was because I didn't know his character. Okay. I wasn't taking the time to read his word, study who he is, actually understand the characteristics of God. I really didn't understand those. And I'm still learning them. And I think I will for the rest of my life, as we all will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I think, it was me finding my identity through Jesus and just figuring out who I am and being okay with who I am also.
Yeah.
I struggled a lot with if I'm not loud enough, then, people don't hear me. But then if I'm too quiet, everybody's like, you're really shy.
Is she okay?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Everybody's asking if I'm okay. Yeah, I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't know what you mean. So I think it was through finding my identity through the Lord, and that a lot of that happened through worship leading and people calling out characteristics in me that I probably didn't even see in myself, and I wouldn't have unless they pointed them out to me.
Yeah.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think through my identity in finding that in the Lord is it's like trial and error.
Yeah.
Basically, of just testing things out, finding who I am, talking to the Lord about it, and reading the Word and like seeing who He says I am, not just who I think He thinks I am, like in my head. Because I can, if you can read the Bible and you can take it out of context and fabricate it to be
super easy
something
to do.
that it's not.
Right.
And that could also screw up your identity in the sense of like, oh, I'm supposed to be this way. I'm supposed to be this way. But it's like when you read the promises of God and like who He says that you are and who He created you to be, that's when it all really started shifting. And that's been since I was 16. And it's still happening now, I would say. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think that's cool too, because you're talking about who the Bible says I am, talking about yourself. Because it does. There's things where it's like there are places in the Bible where the Lord talks about how He sees and thinks about us.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful in so many different ways, but I think it's also really cool to just be intentional about holding on to those things.
Yeah.
And to be like, He loves us. He created us individually and specifically, and has put gifts and special talents and stuff like that in each of us. I just think that's super cool to like be, I'm going to grab onto these things, because when my flesh tells me, oh, I'm too shy, or I'm too quiet, or I'm too this,
Or people.
the person who actually matters says this about me.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool to hold on to.
Yeah, and I definitely, through music, I was able, because I was like, okay, I love music. And then it was like, I love Jesus. And so then it was the combination of all of it where it was like, okay, I can worship lead. And then I fell in love with worship leading. And so that also helped me realize, okay, the Lord put these talents in me, put this passion in me for a reason. Whereas like before I was like, I think I was doing it for the wrong reasons. Like I was like, there was, when I was young, I'm still young. I'm acting like I'm 80 years old. But when I was in my teens,
there you go.
I think it was more so a thing of like, I'm going to do this, not so that people could hear my voice, but see that I love music, or so that people would talk to me about music, or so that I could connect with people. But then it became a really personal thing of like, I do this because I love Jesus.
Yeah.
And I want to serve Him in this way, and I want to serve His people in this way. And it's still to this day growing in that way. But I think, it was finding my identity somewhat through worship leading and just figuring out what the Lord's gifted me with, and that I'm unique in that way. And even, He's gifted so many other leaders with worship leading capabilities and talents of their own, but everybody's individual.
Yeah.
And so I think, it was figuring that out for myself as well. Of like, I am unique in this specific way. My voice sounds different than other people. Yeah. It's not that I'm better or anything like that. It's just different and unique to me.
Uniqueness,
And
great.
The Lord was really teaching me a lot of that, and still is in this season. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I wanted to ask about like your experience with worship leading.
Yeah.
Like, because I've been seeing you do that more, especially within our young adults ministry and stuff. And it's been really cool to see you, I feel like, kind of step up into this higher leadership role.
Yeah.
So, and you've expressed having like mentors or people in the past who have kind of pushed you into that. So I'm curious, like, how has that experience been for you now that you're on this side?
It's been so interesting. And so
interesting, like challenging, interesting?
Yes, it has been challenging. And I feel like I'm just learning a lot. Like, there's so much to learn, I think, in worship leading in regards to, I feel like there's so many different levels of leadership in worship leading. And in the season that I'm in now, yes, I'm leading for young adults, but it's also like, we've had a lot of new singers come in. And so, and like instrumentalists as well, like the band members. And so it's also me learning how to lead in that way and teach them essentially the things that I learned at their age, if that makes sense. It's an interesting place for me to be in because I just remember looking up to my mentors, and it's like, it's odd for me to feel like
a mentor.
Yeah, it's like a weird feeling. I'm like, I'm at the age now where it's like, my gosh. I'm mentoring people, and it's not something that I like, that I think is, I take it very seriously.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a responsibility that it's an honor to me. Like, I definitely don't take it for granted by any stretch of the imagination, because it's a big responsibility. I think worship leading in general is a big responsibility.
Absolutely.
It's ushering people into the presence of God, which is not
Yes.
something that I take lightly.
Yeah.
But then it's also training up other people it's just, it's challenging.
Yeah.
In a good way. It's
Right.
really stretching me and making me grow in ways that I didn't know were possible before.
Yep, sure.
I love it. I really do.
cool.
It is, but it is challenging. I'm not going to lie. Like there are times where I'm like, wow, like am I actually equipped for this? And I think it's really easy for the enemy to kind of get into my head and be like, you know what?
yeah.
No, you're not equipped. This is not, you're not good at this. Those are things that will go through my head. But then it's like, you have to snap out of it and be like, no,
Yeah.
that's not who God says that I am. I was
Right.
put in this position for a reason.
Yeah.
I was asked to be here.
yeah.
And so the Lord put me in that position. And so it's just like, it's a lot of self-talk, honestly.
Yeah.
Like reminding myself, like,
Yes.
it's okay to be in this position. It's okay to screw
Yeah.
up sometimes because I'm a human and I have, if God has grace for me, then I can have grace for myself.
Absolutely.
But it is challenging at points. Yeah.
I think that's cool. So I'm not like I don't play an instrument. I don't sing. I don't know anything about music or worship or whatever.
Yeah.
But when say that you're mentoring, I'm assuming it's more than just skill level things. So
I
like,
honestly wouldn't even say that I'm doing
not
skill
even that?
level.
Okay, great. So what does that mean exactly to like mentor?
I think it's okay. For me, it's more specifically with girls.
Sure.
My singer girls.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's mentoring them in the sense of like showing them that they're capable. Because I
Okay.
know exactly what it feels like to feel like you're not and to
Yes.
feel shy holding a microphone, to feel like my voice shouldn't be heard, that I can just be a presence and not lead.
Right.
And I like encourage them. I'm like, even though if you're not leading a song, you're still leading people. They're
Yeah.
watching
Yeah,
you.
it's true.
And so I think it's that in the sense of like, I see myself in them a lot of the time, like young little me. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, what did I hear
Yeah.
from my mentors? Like,
Yes.
what did I learn that I can share with them as
Yeah.
well? And it's training them up in that sense. The musical stuff, like I can sing, but that's it. Like I rely on my brother a lot for
Nice.
that. He
Shout
helps
out
me
to
a lot.
Micah.
Shout out to
Yeah.
Micah. Love you, Micah. Yeah, but it's the musical stuff. I know it to an extent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's more so the spiritual aspect of it all and just like the confidence level behind it. Like be confident in who you are as a leader. It's not being
Right.
cocky. It's just being
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Oh, God
I'm-
gave
I'm-
you unique talents and
right.
giftings.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so it's just reminding them of that and
I love it.
bringing
Yeah.
them up into something that I think that I see a lot of potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So raising them up into something that's really beautiful.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's cool too is I know just from our friendship over the years, being around the same church and running in some of the same circles, a lot of your Pastor Tim was talking on Sunday about the Thomas guide, the big map that our parents kept under the
Yeah.
seat of the car, right? Like we're still in
Yeah.
that range where we remember the big old map. I used to love it. Like, oh, I'm going to follow us, like
Yeah.
as we drive to Lake Tahoe or something like that. But the map really kind of equates back to the Bible.
Yeah.
And knowing where the Lord is directing us and what he's saying. And I know from over the years, a lot of your personal connection places and times and points with the Lord is music and worship based. What does that like how are you connecting with the Lord? How are you seeking after him
Yeah.
so that when he speaks up and gives you that reminder about the path that he has you on,
Yeah.
you know that it's him that's speaking.
Yeah, I think obviously it's through it's a lot of different things, honestly, because a lot of my growth in seeking the Lord is done in private.
Sure.
It's a lot of me with the Lord by myself.
Yeah.
I've over the last couple of years, it's been a lot of me crying on the floor, like just talking
Sometimes
to
it's
God.
like that.
It just is, and it's through music. Like it's me sitting at my piano, just writing things that are, and it's not that anybody's ever going to hear them. It's just like
Yeah.
just me and the Lord, honestly.
beautiful.
And he talks to me the most in that way. And then it's also, again, it's a lot of self-talk for me where it's like, because I still struggle to this day, but my mind was always a thing that was very difficult for me, of letting my mind go places that it shouldn't go.
Yeah.
Controlling your thoughts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Controlling my thoughts and aligning them with the word of
Right,
God
yeah.
also. And so it's a lot of self-talk in the sense of like, if I let my mind go to an anxious place or a fearful place, it's like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, that is not the Lord. And there will be thoughts that I have that I'm like, I will say out loud. I'll be driving. I'm like, that was not my father speaking to
Yeah.
me. Like, no, I rebuke that. Because
Yes.
it's just a lot of that where it's
Yeah.
like, I've learned in the last year specifically, the Lord really is my friend. Like, really
great,
like
yeah.
a best friend. And so it's like, I'll talk to him like he's my best friend.
Yeah.
And people might think I'm weird.
Yeah. No, I
Like,
think it's
talking to
great.
myself out in public.
Maybe a little, but
walking through the mall, just
I was like,
Yeah.
wow, God. Like, yeah, no, it's, I don't verbally talk out loud in the mall. It's mostly in my head.
Sure.
In my car by myself, I do talk out loud.
That's totally fine.
Yeah, do the same thing.
Yeah. But it is just a lot of me talking to the Lord and trying to figure out what and I still struggle to this day of like, there are people that audibly hear the voice
Right.
of God.
Oh, sure.
I've only heard that once.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
so when I'm like looking for answers for something or I'm struggling, I'm in a waiting season and I'm not audibly hearing something, I'm like, Lord, how am I supposed to know?
Right.
Like how, and a lot of the time it's been through confirmation through other people.
Okay,
Where it's
yeah.
like, I'll have a thought and then someone will say something to me
Oh, yeah.
and I've never told them anything. And I'm like, oh, that's got to be the Lord
Yeah.
confirming
Yes.
something in
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of self-talk and then a lot of truly just like reading my Bible in private time with the Lord and learning his character and understanding who he is. Because
Yeah.
my idea of who his character was at the time was very twisted. I believed a lot of lies from the enemy, honestly, about
Yeah.
who the character of God was. And then I read a book. It's by Louis Giglio. It changed my life.
What's it called?
It's called Don't Give the Enemy a Seat at Your Table.
Ooh.
Changed my life. And just like, it's talking about the battle of the mind, essentially, and just
Wow.
like not giving the enemy a seat at your table.
Wow.
Because he doesn't have to have one. It's just you and the
Yeah.
Father at your table, and that's
Yeah.
it. You should read it. It's really good.
Yeah, I know. I like want to.
It's really good.
Shoot.
But yeah, it really changed my life in the sense of taking control of like my thoughts, taking
Yeah.
captive of them, and
Yeah.
really being like, this is what the Word of God says about me. This
Yeah.
is, it's aligning it with the truth of
Yeah.
the Lord, and that's been my process.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just reading my Bible, worship, talking to the Lord.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
And I think in the midst of that journey, right? In the midst of you, I was when Whit and I were prepping for this, I was not necessarily laughing, but it's like there's so many fun little words that like Christians will like throw at different things. So I was like, oh yeah, some people are gonna call this their prayer closet or their
Right,
secret
right,
place or
right.
their quiet
Yes.
place or this is where I get alone in my garden with the Lord.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like
Okay.
okay, it's like I
Right.
understand the imagery there. It's
Right.
it's beautiful. I'm not knocking that by any means. I just think it's funny that it's like you're sitting with the Lord. You're taking
Yeah.
time with him.
Yeah.
In that process,
Mm-hmm.
where are the places where you've seen him just outright sustaining you through the
Yeah.
journey? Because I think that is a misconception as well, is that, oh, I'm here, but while they're figuring it out, they're on their own.
Right.
And then when they come back to understanding I'm God, then I'll be back with them.
Right.
And it's not that.
No. Yeah, I think in the last 5 years, because that's been the most transformational period of my life in more ways than one, I would say there's been a lot of family stuff that's happened, but also more personally to me, walking through different seasons of heartbreak, whether that be a romantic relationship, of friendship, familial heartbreak, like they're just those are the moments when I've really experienced the presence of the Lord stronger than I ever have before. In my doubting him,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
in those moments, I was like, I said to him before, I was like, I honestly don't even know if you're there for me, because why would you allow me to go through this?
Yeah.
You know what
That,
I mean?
sure.
Like, why something so horrible and my heart is actually broken in half? Like,
Yeah.
why would you allow me to go through this? And now looking back on it, I'm like, the strength that I have now and the confidence that I have in the Lord and the love that I have for him would not have occurred if those
Right.
things hadn't happened. And so it's all of those, he sustained me through all of those things, even when I felt like he wasn't. And the only
Yeah.
reason I know that is because of where I'm at now. And I can look back and say like, wow, he like, I literally cried about it the other day because I was like, the Lord is so good to me
Yeah.
that he really stayed with me
Yeah.
through those times. Even when I was alone in my room crying, he was there with me and I had no idea.
Yeah.
And there were moments where I did. And I was like, wow, Lord, I really feel your presence with me. Or he'll say something to me, or a song will come to me that's really confirming. A lot of it's like worship songs where like I'll hear a new one and I'm like, whoa, like that's very timely for this season of my life.
That's cool.
But it was, definitely through different seasons of heartbreak where it was like the Lord really showed himself as my father and my comforter and just my peace overall. Like that is where I find my peace. And it's really easy to find your peace elsewhere.
Absolutely.
I tried it a lot. I was like, I'm going to listen to this and just escape. Or I'm going to scroll through TikTok.
Yeah, the
and escape.
disassociation.
Exactly. And then it's like, no, once you, like, I will literally open my Bible and I'm like, I don't want to read this right now. Like, I really don't. I'm just like, there are moments where I'm like, I don't feel like reading this.
Absolutely.
And then I do. And then after, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Everything feels okay now. Like literally yesterday, I was like, I need to get some fresh air. I was like, so I went on a walk and I listened to worship music as I was walking with my dog. And I came back home and I felt significantly different than when I had left. Wow. And it's just like little things like that. Just reading a Bible verse, like it's the way that I view it is like reminding your soul whose it is.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Because I'm a human. I'm going to try to do things on my own.
Yeah.
I have a control thing where it's like, exactly. And it's like, no, his way is always better, even when it feels like it's not.
Right.
And that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing.
Feelings.
It's the feelings.
I know.
So many feelings.
They're not trustworthy.
They're not. They're really not. So I've had to learn that, and just trusting in the Lord.
Yeah.
Actually trusting in the Lord, because you can be like, oh yeah, I trust in God, but it's like, no, do you actually? And it's hard. There are days I'm like, you know what, I don't think I do, but then there are days where I'm like, it's giving myself grace. It's not having it perfect. Because before I'd be like, why am I not doing this right? I'm not reading my Bible enough. I'm not doing it. It's like, Lord has grace for you. Right. So it's you should have it for yourself. And you should be kind to yourself. Obviously, uphold certain things, like you should be reading your Bible, have expectations for yourself, but not being too hard on yourself to where the enemy can get control of your mind.
Right.
It's a whole thing.
Gosh. Balancing act.
That's awesome. Anything from, we'll wrap up here in just a couple minutes, anything from service that like stuck out to you, or like really kind of, I want to say like jumped off the page, even though it was spoken, right?
My
but like,
page.
and
Girl, look at those notes.
The way I was like, the whole time.
That is maybe more notes than Pastor Tim goes up.
I think it actually is. It is more. Yes, I've seen his notes. That's more.
Yes.
Let me scroll through.
No, go ahead. I would love to hear if there was something that like jumped out at you specifically
so many
this weekend.
Things, I feel like. Let me see. I guess it's also like, because he spoke about, let me see. Where is it? So I wrote down, there are certain levels of desires in human beings that are never satisfied, and it's because we were made for another world where our satisfaction will finally come. Mm-hmm. And that's also that thing of like reminding yourself you were not created for this world.
Yes.
That's like a daily battle for me, where it's like, okay, absolutely. I was reading, I think it was Ephesians 5, and it talks, I think it's in the Passion Translation, it talks about the thorns of the world.
Oh, okay.
Like when you're walking out and about, whatever, or even just in your room, you don't have to be in public. It's like, because we live in a sin-filled world, there are thorns constantly around you. Mm-hmm. But following the map that Jesus has for you is going to avoid them to a certain extent. And so, like he said, no matter how great our life can be, we're not of this world. And while you're alive here and while you have breath in your lungs, you have a purpose.
Wow. Yeah.
I have to remind myself that a lot, because life can feel stagnant at points where it's like, what am I doing? Like, genuinely, what am I doing? And then it's like, every single day I wake up for a reason. I don't know what that reason is.
Yeah.
Who knows when I'm going to figure it out? And it's probably going to be a continuation of like me figuring things out for the rest. It's not just one thing. No. So it's again, the self-talk.
Yeah.
All of that. That's a theme.
Absolutely.
Today. It's just reminding yourself like you were created to be with God. And so being here in this world, there's a separation there to a certain extent. Obviously, he's living inside of me.
Right.
Obviously.
Yes.
But we do live in a sin-filled world, and so there are temptations coming at you all the time, fiery arrows coming at you all of the time.
Yeah.
But because he lives inside of me, I'm protected from those
Yeah.
things. But it is to a certain extent, like you do have to make conscious decisions to not allow those things to affect you.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
as he does live inside of you, but he never forces himself.
Right.
Right.
So it is you consciously making the decision of like, I will not accept that. I will not accept those thoughts about
Yeah,
myself.
yeah.
I won't believe those lies. Like, that
Yeah.
kind of thing where it's like just reminding yourself that you were created to be with God. It's
Yeah.
I love
there was
that.
a lot. There's a lot in there.
Yeah. No, it's been a fantastic series. We're on week 2 of the series, coming up on week 3. But I've really enjoyed diving into this. When we were talking with Pastor Tim for the pilot episode, we were kind of talking about how this is one of those series that you've heard over the years,
Right.
both him and just pastors
Yeah.
talk about the I ams.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy to me how there's new stuff or a different application or a fresh
Yeah.
something. And it's like that text hasn't changed
Right.
since it was written.
Right.
And yet each portrayal of it pulls out something new or makes you think in a new way. Or
Yeah.
just causes you to evaluate, again, based on the lens that you're looking through at the time and the season of life that you're in.
Yeah.
Oh, right now, I am the vine means a lot to Emily and I. Because it's like,
Yeah.
we need to pull our sustenance from somewhere, right? Like we need our
Yes.
source to be the Lord. Because if
Yes.
we're trying to be the sources for each other,
Yeah.
like we're both running out of energy with kids and a 1-year-old, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
but-
so you need to pull from like in the middle of the night when someone's waking up with a bad dream. Lord, you are the good shepherd. Like, you know, there's intensely practical things.
Yeah.
But anything else? Anyone?
No, I don't know. No, it's great to listen to you do that because I think sometimes struggle with captivating like my own thoughts
Yeah.
and not believing in the things that are lies from the enemy kind of stuff. And so it was just nice to hear you explain all of that, and even just to this last Sunday of it's great. It has like you have to be intentional about it,
You do.
and so the reminder is nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Lex, thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Yeah. Well, hey, if someone sent you this podcast and you don't follow the channel or you haven't interacted with us before, welcome for one. But go ahead and follow us on social media. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel to get notified about when the next episodes drop. And just to go back, if you didn't see Sunday's message and you're like, wow, they were talking about stuff that I need to hear.
Yeah.
You can go back and find it. It's called Turn by Turn Directions to Heaven and Hell. And it was fantastic.
Yeah.
We've been enjoying the series. We love having you guys with us at 9:15 and 11:15 a.m. on Sundays. You can come and join us in person or online. And if you speak Spanish or know someone that does, 1:15 en Espanol. But we love you guys. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you again real soon.